Hey guys, my name's Madison. My parents are Dustin and Nikki, and they are the 4th generation owners of Canna Farm. I'm standing in one of our greenhouses. This is a few examples of some of the plants that we sell as live plants. In the early 1920s, my great-great-grandfather John Horn got some cannas in the mail. He started growing them. They grew and he took them on his vegetable peddling route, and this would have been during the Dust Bowl and Great Depression time frame, and they started selling better than his vegetables. So he started selling cannas, and here we are nearly 100 years later and still selling cannas here in Oklahoma.
Truly our only income is producing and selling cannas, and for about 95 years of our existence we were B2B, business to business. We sold wholesale to mom and pop greenhouses, to bulb distributors, and we found that we were not making enough money to live that life. There wasn't enough margin, and we have slowly, systematically stepped away from B2B, and we are now 100% retail. We'll sell to anybody that's willing to pay retail prices. Of course, if a business wants to buy from us, they can. We just don't discount much. There's a small discount, but it's still a big difference in pricing.
So we had customers for years tell us, I don't want the bulb, I don't want to wait for it to grow and bloom, I just want to buy the plant. And we said, well, you can't ship a live plant. And that went on for many years. Like, okay, let's try it. People are requesting it, let's try it. So we took a 4.5-inch pot, planted a bulb. All of our plants that we ship are between 12 and 24 inches tall, and we can secure this down in a box and ship it successfully, and it'll look just like this when it comes out of the box. That was our first year. Our second year that we attempted to sell and ship live plants, we found a tissue culture lab and are able to buy these as what's called a plug or a liner. So it's a portion of the root system that's grown in a laboratory. They grow it out, they send it to us in plants that are about this tall. This particular plant originated from tissue culture, and so we'll plant these and sell them that way. It was a great way to expand some varieties that we didn't have, that the tissue culture lab had, and white had been a request for years and years, and we were delighted to find it last year as tissue culture. So most of our plants that we ship are started from tissue culture. It just makes a really nice uniform size. Canna bulbs, they're technically a rhizome. Most people in the industry refer to them as a bulb. They're like ginger. They're very irregular, very odd shaped. They sprout very irregularly. We do plant some of those to ship, but the tissue culture plants just sprout really nice right here in the middle of the pot and makes a more uniform plant for shipping. So cannas in the field, this is the predominant part of our business. We have a 2-row modified potato digger that we will harvest all of this with. We'll go through first, we'll cut down all the foliage, because what we want is underground. We will dig 2 rows at a time, bring it into our building, we'll wash it. We can't ship anything in the spring with soil intact, so a home gardener doesn't have to wash their rhizomes, but we do for shipping purposes. So we're gonna dig a plant, but normally in our harvest process, obviously this is all done by machine. So this would have been one small rhizome planted in the spring. We're not finished with our growing season yet, so we'll even have a little bit better production off of this when we go to harvest middle of October. And I probably couldn't do this if it hadn't rained yesterday. And you can start to see some of that there. Maybe this will be a... So that's about half the clump. Oh, that helped. So what we would have planted in the spring might have been something as small as this. We have a 4-row planter. We ride on the back of it. We have a chute. A furrow is opened. We drop the plantings, what we call our planting stock. And then the furrow is closed back behind it as we pass over. So something like this would have been planted in the spring. It's now September, 1st of September, and it's produced a clump like this. If we harvested this today without the weed, there's 2 good retail size rhizomes that this will make that we'll be able to sell, and then several smaller pieces that we'll hold back for planting. So through the harvest process, this will all go through our washing apparatus. We'll break this clump down by the middle of October, so another 6 weeks from now, this clump will be larger. When it travels on the machinery and the equipment, pieces break off, and so like this, and again, that's what we hold back. It comes into the barn, we're sorting and sizing, holding these back, putting them into storage. They'll stay in storage until April, when we'll get them out and plant them. Then these will stay in storage until everything in the field is harvested, at which time we'll take it back out of storage. We'll wash it a second time, so second time that hands have touched it. We'll do more of our grading and sizing, and we'll put it into bulk packaging, crates of 100, and then it'll be prepared it'll be ready for our spring shipments.
What is the storage like? Is it refrigerated? Or?
Nope. Ideal storage temperature in the winter is about 50 degrees. So we keep our barns. Barns are pretty cool. Obviously, there's parts of the winter that we are heating them. We open doors on a nice, beautiful, sunny winter day. We'll open the barn doors and let as much heat in, and then we'll close them up at night and add heat if we need to.
And the bulbs, well, the rhizomes can be completely dry during that time.
They can. They're completely dormant.
No misting or anything.
Completely dormant.
Okay.
They're stored in peat moss, which helps a good moisture balance. A little bit of moisture, but not enough.
Okay.
So the fun thing that we can see here, this is what was planted last year.
Oh.
That was our planting stock. I'm sure it's not a true biology term. We call it the mother bulb. Okay. That's our own wording. So that was planted, and that produced this so far this growing season. So that was what was planted. And then we'll take, obviously we've got all of our foliage and stalk cut off, but we'll break this right here. And that would be a really nice size to sell. We probably don't go much smaller than that.
And how many bulbs would that count as?
This is one.
Okay,
this is one.
Okay.
And so these are the eyes or the growth points, and this is what we're looking for. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I damaged this one. So this one's got 5. And so everything that we sell, we want to have 3 to 5 what we call eyes on them. And we feel like that's a really premium quality size. Sometimes we'll ship even more than that, but minimum they're gonna have 3 to 5. So we've got one here. We've got one here. And if I broke this down, now this is gonna be too small to sell. So now I've got this to plant, I've got this to plant, I've got this to plant, and then these two that were broken. So I have 5 pieces of planting stock, and I've got 2 real quality premium size rhizomes for resale. And that's how we do our sizing.
Hey there, and welcome to Canna Farm. Today's the first day of harvest, and we're currently getting started.
The first step of harvest is using a shredder to cut down the plants that we grew all summer. Once the foliage is on the ground, we go back a second time using the rake. The rake moves all of the plant matter to the side. This keeps the leaves and stems out of the machinery and prevents buildup, which can lead to equipment malfunctions. Here, Dad and I are hooking the digging implement, which we call the Canna digger, onto the back of the tractor. We are also attaching the hydraulic hoses. This digger very closely resembles the original model, which was designed by my great-grandpa Neil in the late 1940s. The design is a modified potato digger, which has had only a few modifications in the last 70 years. Now that the ground is prepped and the digger is attached to the tractor, it's time to drive out to the field and get started. The 2 people that drive the digger are my dad, Dustin, or my brother, Sage. Today, my dad is doing the driving. The digger uses a blade to cut under the bulbs and lift them out of the ground. The bulbs then ride up the conveyor. This allows dirt to be shaken off. Then, the bulbs drop into the bed of the truck, which drives alongside. This year was my first year to catch cannas. It took a few practice rounds, but I eventually got the hang of it. I definitely think it is one of the harder jobs during the harvest season. Once the bed of the truck is full, the digger stops and clears all of the cannas off of the conveyor. We wait for the hand signal from Dad, and then we pull out from under the digger. It's time to drive the full load back to the barn for the first step of winter processing. You can't see it, but under the load of cannas is a conveyor belt. Once we get back to the barn, the conveyor is what slowly transfers the bulbs out of the back of the truck. Once we arrive, the truck backs up to the washer. Then we use the conveyor to unload the cannas at a controlled rate. The rate of the conveyor depends on how much dirt is left on the bulbs, how many there are, and the amount of debris that is mixed in with the bulbs. Once the cannas are on the chain conveyor of the washer, they go under streams of water. You can see that when they come out on the other side that the bulbs are much cleaner.
We wash the bulbs to remove intact soil from them. This is a Department of Agriculture policy for shipping bulbs in the mail. While we add this extra step, it's not something you have to do at home. You can easily knock off any excess dirt without using water. During this washing process, we also use 3 water reservoirs. The same water cycles through the reservoirs to the washing area and back. We began doing this almost 20 years ago to reduce our water usage.
Once the bulbs are on the big conveyor belt, our team carefully removes debris from the canna bulbs. The bulbs are separated by being placed on the top conveyor belt, where they ride to the end of the line and are dumped into crates for temporary storage.
The cannas remain in crates only for a brief period of time. Once harvest is over, every bulb is re-washed and our production process continues. I look forward to sharing the details of that process in a future video. But until then, thank you for joining us on the farm for our harvest season. We'll see you next time.
So for the majority of our last 90 years, all of our cannas have been grown on this farm. For the majority of that time, we started downsizing our crop to go from wholesale to retail. Also, by doing that, we can move the cannas around on our acreage. They're heavy feeders, and it's better for the soil if we're not planting the same cannas on the same piece of ground year after year. So when we reduced our number of acres, so there's 80 acres on this side of the field. We can play musical chairs, so to speak, with the cannas up and down this 80 acres. For the acres that we're not using, we started sunflowers the summer of 2020, right in the middle of COVID. We put them in. They're great for soil health. We use all of their, what you see above ground, gets chopped up, laid on the foliage, turns into organic matter that we can work into the soil. They have a deep taproot that is beneficial. In the winter, we do a trio of rye, peas, and radishes. Grow that in the winter. And again, in the spring, we turn all of that organic matter as we're trying to take care of the land that we have. It is a limited resource, and so we are doing the best we can to move our crop around up and down the side of the field, as well as add some really cover crops. So we planted sunflowers as a cover crop in the summer of 2020. Everything was shut down. Sunflowers bloomed 60 days after planting. 60 days came up, and we had this massive area of sunflowers. That particular summer, we planted 30 acres of sunflowers, so it was a lot of sunflowers. When they were just about this size, we're like, oh my goodness, what are we doing? We should capitalize on this. We didn't plant them for any kind of agritourism, so we quickly threw up a few social media posts, really as an afterthought, and had so many people come out that summer, had families come out, had people come take pictures. They were so grateful for an outage since we were all closed up. We didn't have all that many places to go. They could come here and roam, and there was no fear of COVID. So really quite by accident that we did that. So we thought, okay, that was fun. We'll do it again. Did it last year. Had a little bit larger crowd, a little bit more photographers. We charge the professional photographers. They have their fee, and then they do mini sessions, and families and kids come out. And so did that last year, and like, okay, we can do this. So this is our third year. Had a little bit more opportunity to advertise ahead of time, do a little bit more exposure than we've done in the past with the addition of our oldest daughter running our social media. So yeah, here we go. We have about 10 days, and people will come from all over the state. Had a couple here from San Antonio this morning, and it's $5 to come in the field, take all the photos you'd like. The great thing is, people who are coming for the sunflowers are not necessarily gardeners. Really, they're coming for social media photos. So the average age of our customer for cannas is 62 and above. But this exposes us to a whole entire different generation. They're coming out for the pictures, but just it happens to be while they're here, they like, oh, well, cannas. I've not ever heard of a canna. I've not ever grown a canna. I've never been to a canna farm. So it's a great exposure for what our real business is, which is growing and selling cannas. So.